welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast. Now, companies hire my next guest to help them drive sales by improving the important conversation and presentation. Now, she is named at the top 25 women in sales and a top 30 coaching guru. Kiplinger's Personal Finance said, one of the best ways to invest in your success is to learn presentation skills from Patricia Fripp. And we're going to do just that. So it is my great honor to welcome my friend, Patricia Fripp, to Scale Your Sales podcast.
Great to be with you as always.
Well, it's lovely to see you again. Now, I really want to just kind of talk about the situation we're in now. Now, given that we're all experiencing unique challenges, what advice would you give sellers to help them ride out this pandemic?
This is not as much a time to try and sell as keep in touch and be of service. What I am finding is many of my clients are not spending money. Others, in fact, are spending more. For example, my clients are now going virtual and many of them are terrified, brilliant engineers, but they have to pre-record their own content and it has to be exact for a production company to splice it together to make live, even though 3 presenters are not in the same location when they record it. So that is a new opportunity for me, for example. Others want to give informational web trainings that are inspirational and practical. That's a new opportunity. And the rest be of service. It doesn't matter if you are giving your clients who really don't have money help. Just remember that they gave you business when they had money. Help them along when they don't.
That's excellent advice, because I still see so much online about, the sell. And I think it just doesn't feel right. And it's very impersonal to be pushing upon your customers what you want without actually considering where they are and how they're feeling.
Yes, be of service. I look at it this way. This is a great time to learn today and earn tomorrow. It's a great time for everyone to invest with podcasts and YouTube and whatever online learning you normally subscribe to and say you have no time. Now you have more time.
Talking about a great resource, FrippVT is an amazing resource. I mean, I often just kind of dip in and when I want to improve on a particular aspect of my presentation. It's so much there. It's like the Bible of speaking and all that you need to go. So I would highly encourage all listeners to get in contact through FrippVT, because it's brilliant.
Thank you.
But I know that you're doing an awful lot online, and you have for many, many years. How come you got onto this so early?
Years ago, long before Zoom and GoToMeeting, one of my it was really someone I did business with. He built a virtual office, which is very much like Zoom. However, I was the only one who had it. And he built it for me because it didn't exist. And I remember the first time one of my clients said, when can you come to New Jersey and spend a day helping me? I say, I'm not coming to New Jersey. You're coming into my virtual office. It was much more cost effective. And probably, Janice, what I'm most proud of in my life, I was not naturally a technology person. However, I've embraced it. That doesn't mean that I don't have people who help me. I always like to say, God gave us younger people to help make the technology work.
Which is brilliant, brilliant. And we've all got to be lifelong learners, haven't we? There's always new skills, new things. And the danger is when you think you've got it, isn't it? You've always got to be learning.
Well, I like to say, Are you practicing to improve or to reinforce bad habits, whether it's sales presentations or conversations or a speak? And of course, we're doing both. There's an old adage, practice makes perfect. No, it doesn't. It makes permanent. Yeah. And if we in sales are thinking, well, I'm at the top of my game, you are not remembering that your competition who watch you want to do better than you. So your competition is watching to nip at your heels. You better do something to improve your process, your message, your methodology, or just your commitment to keep you ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So what practical strategy would you offer listeners to actually help them stay ahead and, you know, help them get buyers when we're in a different world to buy? Because it's all about relationship building, but you've got to continue to be that trusted advisor. So what's the kind of practical skill to gear up?
First, I recommend you revisit, you refocus, you rescript. You look at if you have any email messages that automatic. Follow-up email from one of your systems. Revisit them, refocus what is your message now, and rescript your message to them. I spent 5 hours yesterday going through my YouTube, making sure, can I give this a better title? Is there a better description? So it's you refocus your message in as many ways possible. Online, if you send letters or notes, your emails, just revisit and ask yourself from the point of view, as we were discussing, is this coming from the point of view of service? Or is it the point of view of me-focused selling?
That's really interesting, because I know having an awareness of the time we're in, but actually it's a skill we should be doing all the time. You know, like how quickly our message changes and or it's out of date, and years go by before we revisit these things. So I think that's a really good practical strategy, and especially relevant now.
And this is why, take advantage of this opportunity. Janice, you know, I travel a lot, and I've always dreamed, well, if I was home for a month, my offices would be organized, my dressing room, I have a lot of clothes, I have a whole room for my clothes, the luxury of living alone. And I said, you know, I have been home for what, 2.5 months? I have been so busy creating content, doing, as I'm saying, reorganize, connecting, designing new programs for clients, with the exception of the occasional drawer that I'm tidying. Believe me, my offices aren't that much tidier and organized.
It's really funny because, you know, I'm also busier than I've ever been doing. I mean, I'm actually doing sewing NHS scrubs at the weekend. I'm doing DIY. My gardens never look better. Plus, you know, revisiting my website, the message, creating new content, you know, finishing off that ebook that's been going on for 6 months. Literally all of these jobs that have been on the back burner. It's like a deluge of things that have actually come forward, and I'm struggling to kind of get enough sleeping because there's so many things going on, really. So I think I've spoken to quite a few people like yourselves that said, you know, I'm busier than ever, which is a good thing to take your mind off, you know, where it could go with all of the kind of bad news stories.
Well, if you think of the amount of time that many speakers spend on planes and going to the airport and then going to the car rental, well, that time is now yours.
Yeah.
Invest it well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not only learning, it's not only keeping in touch, it's take time for yourself. You know, just there's nothing like sitting quietly, getting more sleep, so that when you do come in the office with this busyness that's appeared, we have more energy to do it, more focused.
So I want to talk about, you know, your history as a Hall of Fame international keynote speaker, and also being the first of a lot of in a lot of areas, more particularly the first woman to be president of the National Speakers Association. Now, what's your view on diversity and its representation on stage? Now, I'm particularly thinking of a sales conference, who will remain nameless, that typically has a mix in the audience, and I'm sure you've seen this, but a predominance of white male speakers on stage. So what's your view about how we deal with these dinosaurs, these organizations that are not really moving on? Because I'm sure you've had to deal with this and perhaps even still dealing with this.
Well, of course, I'm a 43-year member of the National Speakers Association. And when I first went to NSA, they certainly, National Speakers Association, certainly there were women, but they were in the minority. And I remember that when the gentleman who discovered me, Mike Frank, who was a Speakers Bureau, used to say to clients, would you consider having a woman? And many would say no. Then it got to the point where companies needed to prove they were modern thinking. So they wanted a woman. And then it got to the point where it was more a message. Now, also, if you look at the makeup of the National Speakers Association, we certainly have an incredible amount of diversity now. Times have changed. And certainly we used to go to programs on speaking internationally. I can't speak of England, but I'm sure it's very much the same. When you speak in Silicon Valley or most audiences in America, I would say a very high percentage, English was not their first language, which is why my message, as you know, a good part of it is be specific. Be specific. When even if English is your first language, you need to be specific. If it's the second or third and there's a level of interpretation with your message, you have to be specific. People will understand you. And when we tell stories, it's important we populate our stories with flesh and blood characters that our audience can see. Now, one way that it's very important, I'll give you a specific example, so we prove that we earn the right to be speaking to an audience, whatever they look like. I was engaged to deliver 2 different webinars on presentation skills, one in Mexico and one in Barbados. And this was for SHRE, which of course all HR professionals. So the first action we took, Janice, we took all the photographs out of the PowerPoint. And we always look, is there diversity? But we took them out and we put all photographs in from people who came from Mexico. We put the American flag. And although I delivered the content, one of my organizers in Mexico, all the bullet points she changed. So it would be Spanish. Then in Barbados, it was all photographs, their flag. It was, the bullet points were English, but we were proving we knew who we were talking to. So that's a simple step. However, any meeting organizers, if you want loyalty from your association or your audience, you do need to have your audience reflected on stage. Now, the best I can give you example of that is Dan Maddox, my good client from the American Payroll Association. He is very aware. And it is not only Black, white, and Asian speakers, it's a matter of different ages, young and mature. So for example, he had many long-time members, and he hired several times a speaker, Lola Gillibrand, when she was in her 80s, because they had some mature. So it was ages as well as nationality.
I think it's really important to be representative of your audience, and you know, but you still see a lot of, especially in sales, it's very kind of well, it is kind of top heavy, male dominated, but the ranks coming through.
Not necessarily with the tech companies.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely
my biggest challenge, and you know, I'm speaking at a Toastmaster conference. And mostly a lot of the people are engineers or sales in engineering and tech companies, because everybody I am talking to all has a very long, complicated name that is Indian. And I have to say, first thing, let's help me understand how I would pronounce. Let's just start with your first name, then we'll work to the second name. And probably the best connection you can make is upfront, is say, please help me understand how I can pronounce your name right.
Yeah. So, you know, you teach many people, many speakers, how to improve their skills, and presentation is an essential part of the whole sales methodology. And I know that you're very specific, very particular about the words that you use and how people portray themselves so that they're portraying a clear message. Can you give us some indications of perhaps some of the mistakes you see people make, but also, you know, the kind of quick improvements or things that people should look at?
Definitely. All sales professionals, one, do not use the traditional, what I consider old-fashioned sales model. You're lucky enough to now be, whether it's online or in person, talking to perhaps the real economic buyer or a team who is considering you or two other companies. Usually it's, hi, my name is Patricia Fripp. I work with the ABC company. We've been in business this long. This is what we do. This is our unique methodology. This is who we serve. We'd like to do business with you. Nobody cares. If you are to the point in the conversation where you are talking to now the decision makers, you've whittled your way to the top of, you know, maybe 3 companies. You got it. If you sound the same as everybody else, you have no advantage. Plus, they know a lot about you by the time you get there. In fact, many prospects know more about the company they're considering doing business with than you as salespeople. I recommend you focus. This is the secret of all communications. You have to speak as an audience advocate. Look at your message from the point of view of your prospect. I recommend salespeople say, congratulations. That's your opening line. Congratulations. And you give them a genuine compliment about what they're proud of. It could be their headquarters. It could be the fact that their stock price has gone up. It could be their marketing campaign. It could be everyone who talked to me on my way to the conference room asked me, you know, said good morning, asked me if I needed any help. Obviously, your core values are in action. Then you never thank people for their time. Every salesperson, doesn't matter what the cost of your product or service. No, thank you for the opportunity to discuss why the Fripp sales presentation training might be what you're looking for. Then, John and Mary have been very gracious with their time and information. And they said, now, is it opportunities, challenge, or interest? They said your interests are in ABC, or the challenge you want to solve is this, this, this. And you are putting together your structure of your conversation or presentation based around what you believe they want. Is there anything else you would like to discuss? And then you go through, so this is your challenge. This is what we would recommend. In fact, a company the same size of yours, we did this. In other words, you're giving the information. They probably know how long you've been in business, but you can say, of the 38 years we've been in business. So you take what you probably want them to know, but you organize the structure of your presentation around their interests, their challenges, or the opportunities they want to take advantage of.
This is brilliant. Brilliant. I wish I thank heavens we've recorded this. So I can make my notes as well. We're coming to the end of the podcast. So, you know, I would love to find out, who is your hero or shero?
My brother, Robert Fripp. My brother is, as you know, according to Rolling Stone magazine, the 42nd best guitarist in the history of the world, living or dead. And I say to my friends, please give up any preconceived idea of what a rock musician is like. He started not as a naturally talented musician. He always says he was tone deaf with no sense of rhythm. He is a practiced, disciplined musician. And even when he is on the road now, he still practices every day. He is a perfect example. He's a wonderful, kind, sweet brother and nice man. He's a perfect example of the discipline that you need to be a success and stay a success. Now, if we look at history, Winston Churchill. Okay.
After your brother.
Well, in different categories. Outside the family, yeah, Winston Churchill. And Janice, I just realized, because I'm putting together a lot of programs on executive presentations, leadership presentations in challenging times. I grew up hearing stories from my parents about World War II and how Winston Churchill would get on the radio with the power of his words, give people confidence and hope and a commitment to fight in the streets, even though they would queue up for an hour for an orange, or hear sirens all night. And on reflection now, I think that is when I first was programmed to end up being a speaker and a coach and a wordsmith. I only just realized that recently, but I think it was that programming as a little girl, hearing these stories about the power of words.
Well, I think that's a good way to end that, because I know that's very close to your heart and you're very particular. You'll pick up words that I say and correct me. And, you know, so I have you in my head often, Patricia, but I love having you in my head. Who better to have it in my head? So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insight. I'll be putting all of the links in the show notes, but perhaps just tell listeners how they can get hold of you.
Yes, the best action is to go to Fripp, FRIPP.com. If you want to send me an email, pfripp@fripp.com. But on fripp.com, there's some free resources on the homepage you can click on. Download 11 mistakes sales professionals make.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And I will definitely put that in the show notes. So take care. And thank you very much for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, Patricia Fripp.
My pleasure.